Every morning, millions of men put on the same costume, a jacket, a tie, matching trousers. They think it makes them look professional, powerful, serious. But what if this outfit was never designed to make you look good? What if the business suit was actually born from death, revolution, and a desperate attempt to survive? Because that is exactly what happened. And once you know the real story, you will never see a man in a suit the same way again. Let's go back to Europe in the 1600s. If you were rich, you dressed like you were rich, loudly, bright colors, gold buttons, silk fabric, enormous collars and extravagant embroidery. Clothing was your social rank, worn on your body for everyone to see. This is called sumptuary culture. It means using clothing to display wealth and social status openly. The more gold on your jacket, the more important you were. Kings wore red and purple. Nobles wore fine lace. The poor wore rough wool. Nobody tried to look the same. Looking different was the entire point. Then, something changed. Something radical. In the mid-1600s, King Charles II of England did something that shocked his court. He stopped wearing his elaborate, jeweled French-style robes. Instead, he put on a simple long coat, a waistcoat, and straight trousers, all in dark, neutral tones. His court laughed at first. Then they copied him. This was not just a fashion choice. It was a political statement. England and France were rivals. By dressing simply, Charles was rejecting French excess. He was saying, "We are serious, we are different, we are modern." And this quiet rebellion, one king choosing simplicity over spectacle, planted the first seed of what would become the modern suit. Fast forward about 150 years. The year is 1789. Paris is on fire, not literally, but almost. The French Revolution begins, and it changes everything, including fashion. Before the revolution, elaborate clothing was the uniform of the aristocracy, the noble ruling class. After the revolution, those same clothes became dangerous. If you dressed too richly in Paris in the 1790s, the crowd might drag you to the guillotine. The new revolutionary idea was equality, and equality needed a new uniform. Radical politicians called the sans-culotte, which means without fancy trousers, rejected the silk knee breeches of the nobles. They wore long, plain trousers instead. This is a fascinating moment in history. Trousers, plain, simple, long trousers, became a symbol of freedom. Meanwhile, in England, another shift was happening. The Industrial Revolution was creating a new kind of powerful person, the businessman. Not a noble born with a title, not a military general, a merchant, a factory owner, a banker, a man who earned his position. These men needed clothing that was different from the old aristocracy. They did not want gold embroidery or silk robes. That felt dishonest for them, old-fashioned. They wanted to look competent, rational, modern, and a new style was ready for them. The frock coat, a long fitted jacket in dark wool, became the standard garment of the serious professional man. This garment had a specific quality that would define menswear for the next 200 years. This is called restraint. It means deliberately choosing simplicity over decoration to signal intelligence and control. In other words, I am too important to show off. The businessman in his dark coat was saying, "My brain earns my status, not my jewels." If you are enjoying this story, Michael's Mindcast has many more stories like this one: history, business, and ideas that change how you see the world. Now, here is where the story gets really interesting. The man who arguably invented modern men's fashion was not a designer. He was not a tailor. He was not a king. His name was George Brian Brummel. Most people called him Beau Brummel, and in early 1800s London, he was the most influential man in the city. Not because of money, not because of birth, but because of how he dressed. Brummel had one obsession: perfection through simplicity. He wore a dark blue coat, white linen, perfectly fitted trousers. His cravat, the ancestor of the modern tie, was folded with almost scientific precision. Nothing was decorative. Everything was exact. He reportedly spent 5 hours getting dressed each morning. He polished his boots with champagne. He had his gloves made by 3 different specialists, 1 for the thumb, 2 for the fingers. This sounds ridiculous, but his influence was enormous. Even the Prince of Wales, the future King George IV, considered Brummel his style guide. Brummel created what we now call the ideology of the well-dressed man. The idea is this: true elegance is invisible. You should look effortlessly perfect, not obviously decorated. This principle, effortless, restrained elegance, sits at the heart of every modern business suit. When you see a perfectly fitted dark suit today, you are seeing Beau Brummel's legacy, even 220 years later. By the mid-1800s, something important was happening. The business suit, or a close ancestor of it, was becoming standardized. The word suit actually comes from the French word suite, meaning a set of matching things. Before this era, men's jacket, trousers, and waistcoat were often different colors and fabrics. The matched three-piece suit, jacket, waistcoat, trousers, all the same fabric, became the new standard. And then something crucial happened in the 1860s. The lounge suit appeared. This is the direct ancestor of the modern business suit. Shorter, less formal than the frock coat, more practical. Originally, the lounge suit was considered casual dress. It was what you wore at home, in the countryside, away from the office. The name actually tells you this. A lounge is a place to relax. But over the next decades, it climbed the social ladder. This is an important concept in fashion history. This is called the trickle-up effect, when a style starts at the lower or more casual level of society and gradually moves to the top. Usually, fashion trickles down from the elite to ordinary people, but with the lounge suit, it went the other way. By 1900, the lounge suit was acceptable in offices and business settings. By 1920, it was standard professional dress across Europe and North America. The suit had completed its journey from casual weekend wear to the uniform of power. Here is perhaps the most remarkable part of this story. How did a garment invented in England in the 1800s become the global uniform of professional men everywhere? The answer is colonialism and globalization, two forces that changed the world and, with it, men's fashion. As the British Empire expanded across Asia, Africa, and the Americas, so did British cultural standards. Colonial administrators wore suits in tropical heat. Local professionals adopted the style to gain respect and access. Then came American cinema. Hollywood in the 1920s and 1930s showed the world what success looked like. Cary Grant, Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart, always in perfectly fitted suits. The message was simple. This is what a powerful, successful man looks like. This is what sociologists call aspirational dressing. Wearing clothes not for who you are, but for who you want to become. After World War II, America's economic dominance spread American corporate culture globally. IBM, Ford, Wall Street, they all required suits, and their corporate culture became the template for business culture worldwide. By the 1960s, a businessman in Tokyo, Lagos, Sao Paulo, or London all wore essentially the same garment. The suit had become the first truly global professional uniform. Think about that for a moment. No government ordered it. No world organization decreed it. It just happened. A quiet revolution in men's clothing that started with one English king rejecting French fashion had spread to every corner of the planet. This is exactly the kind of story Michael's Mindcast loves, the hidden history behind ordinary things. If you want more, hit subscribe. The next story might surprise you even more. But not everyone accepted the suit's dominance. The 1960s and 1970s were a direct rebellion against the suit and everything it represented. Young people in London and San Francisco dressed in protest. The hippie movement rejected corporate dress codes as a rejection of corporate values. The suit became the symbol of conformity, blind obedience to a system. And yet the suit survived. In fact, it fought back. The 1980s brought the power suit, exaggerated shoulder pads, bold colors, aggressive tailoring. This was not the restrained elegance of Beau Brummel. This was armor. Gordon Gekko in the film Wall Street, Margaret Thatcher in her structured jackets, Ronald Reagan's presidential suits. The power suit said, "I am here, I am serious, and I am not moving." This is called power dressing, using clothing deliberately to project authority and dominance. The 1990s brought a counter-reaction. Silicon Valley emerged as the new center of economic power. And Silicon Valley hated suits. Steve Jobs in his black turtleneck, Mark Zuckerberg in a gray t-shirt. Jeff Bezos in casual clothes. This was a deliberate rejection of old-world corporate identity. The message was, "We are so powerful, we do not need to perform power for you." We invented a new dress code. Casual clothes now meant you were rich enough not to care. The suit was in trouble. So where does that leave us today? The suit has not died, but it has transformed. Since the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020, remote work became normal for millions of professionals worldwide. Office dress codes softened dramatically. Many companies abandoned formal dress requirements entirely. The global suit industry shrank significantly. But here is the interesting twist. At exactly the same time, a new generation began rediscovering tailored clothing. Not as uniform, not as conformity, but as personal expression. Young people today mix suit jackets with trainers. They wear bold colors and unusual cuts. They break every rule Beau Brummel ever wrote. They are wearing suits on their own terms. This brings us to the final idea. Fashion historians call it the democratization of style, the process by which clothing that once belonged to one group becomes available and reinterpreted by everyone. The suit began as the property of kings and revolutionaries. It became the uniform of businessmen and colonizers. Then, the symbol of conformity. Then of power. Then of rebellion. Today, it belongs to nobody and to everyone. A garment born from political rebellion 400 years ago has survived revolutions, world wars, social upheaval, and a global pandemic. That is not just fashion. That is resilience. So let's bring this back to that moment you get dressed in the morning. When you put on a suit, or decide not to, you are participating in a 400-year-old conversation. A conversation about power, identity, rebellion, belonging, status, from Charles II rejecting French fashion, to the French Revolution's plain trousers, to Beau Brummel's obsessive perfection, to Hollywood glamour, to Silicon Valley's calculated informality. Every choice about what to wear carries history inside it. The suit is not just fabric, it is a document, a living record of how societies organize themselves and how individuals fight to define who they are inside those structures. The next time you see someone walk into a room in a perfectly fitted dark suit, ask yourself, what are they really saying? And here is my question for you, because I genuinely want to know what you think. In a world where dress codes are disappearing, where working from home is normal, where the most powerful people in the world wear hoodies, do you think the suit still carries real power? Or is it becoming a costume? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.